Okay, part 2, chapter 5. I just finished chapter 4 of part 2, and Winston was still in Charrington's apartment bedroom that he rented from Mr. Charrington, who owns the junk shop, and he and Julia are sneaking away to this apartment on a pretty regular basis to spend time together. So that was chapter 4. I just finished it. I posted the video of me reading it, and it's up on Canvas. And it only took 45 minutes for the Wi-Fi to load everything. Okay, so this is part 5. By the time this loads, we may be back in school. Again, I don't know what page I'm on, and I'm reading out of my own book. It doesn't really matter what page I'm on because most of you aren't going to look at your book anyway. So if you are looking at your book, it's part 2, chapter 5, and they're marked in the book, so you should be able to find it. All right, chapter 5. Sim had vanished. A morning came and he was missing from work. A few thoughtless people commented on his absence. On the next day, nobody mentioned him. On the third day, Winston went into the vestibule of the records department to look at the notice board. One of the notices carried a printed list of the members of the chess committee, of whom Sim had been one. It looked almost exactly as it had looked before. Nothing had been crossed out, but it was one name shorter. It was enough. Sim had ceased to exist. He had never existed. The weather was baking hot. In the labyrinthine ministry, the windowless, air-conditioned rooms kept their normal temperature. But outside, the pavement scorched one's feet, and the stench of the tubes at the rush hours was a horror. And I think the tubes is referring to the subway systems, which is what they call them in England and London, are the tubes, the subway systems. I think that's what that's referring to. So the stench of the tubes at the rush hours was a horror. The preparations for Hate Week were in full swing, and the staffs of all the ministries were working overtime. Processions, meetings, military parades, lectures, waxwork displays, film shows, telescreen programs, all had to be organized. Stands had to be erected, effigies built, slogans coined, songs written, rumors circulated, photographs faked. Julia's unit in the fiction department had been taken off the production of novels and was rushing out a series of atrocity pamphlets. Winston, in addition to his regular work, spent long periods every day in going through back files of the Times and altering and embellishing news items which were to be quoted in speeches. Late at night, when crowds of rowdy proles roamed the streets, the town had a curiously febrile air. The rocket bombs crashed oftener than ever, and sometimes in the far distance there were enormous explosions which no one could explain, and about which were wild rumors. The new tune, which was to be the theme song of the Hate Week, the Hate Song it was called, had already been composed and was being endlessly plugged onto telescreens. It had a savage, barking rhythm which could not exactly be called music, but resembled the beating of a drum. Roared out by hundreds of voices to the tramp of marching feet, it was terrifying. The proles had taken a fancy to it, and in the midnight streets it completed with the still popular "It Was Only a Hopeless Fancy," which is the song that the lady that was hanging up laundry in chapter 4 that I just read a few minutes ago, that was the song she was singing. The Parsons children, now remember the Parsons live across from Winston, and their children are whack, just like everybody else's kids, so they're training to be spies, basically. The Parsons children played it at all hours of the night and day, unbearably, on a comb and a piece of toilet paper. Winston's evenings were fuller than ever. Okay, so if you just were really listening, and you heard me say that Parsons children played that song, at all hours of the night and day, unbearably on a comb and a piece of toilet paper. Okay, so you guys have no concept of this, but us old people, I'm embarrassed to even say this. We used to stick combs. Do you guys even use combs anymore? Like combs that you comb your hair, not brushes, combs. You could stick the teeth end into your mouth and hold your lips over it, and you could make kind of like a kazoo sound. I'm embarrassed I'm even telling you that, but it's the truth. You could do the same thing with a strip of toilet paper, and you could make it vibrate. Simple things for simple minds. Okay, moving on. Squads of volunteers organized by Parsons were preparing the street for Hate Week.